Hey there! Today, I'm going to share with you guys on how do I keep my body cool and stay hydrated whenever I find myself hiking on an extreme heat in the desert. The purpose of this video is not to encourage anybody to hike in the middle of the heat, but rather to offer solutions or ways to help a person out if they find themselves in a situation where they are having a difficulty hiking in the middle of the heat. I am not purposely hiking in the middle of an extreme heat, but I did find myself a few times and I have learned a lot from my mistakes. The very first time when I find myself in trouble in the middle of the desert was when I wanted to see an abandoned train, which is at Anza Borrego. There were two trails heading to that destination. The other one was a 16-mile hike just beside the rail, which is flat, and the other one is a 5-mile, mostly scrambling, which I picked because I love that kind of activity, but I was oblivious to the dangers of the desert years ago. I had an electrolyte and 3 liters of water in my backpack, but later on, while scrambling, the water was pouring out of my backpack and lost a lot of water. I was with Sean at that time and he still have a lot of water, so we thought of keep on going because we're almost to our destination. But to find out that the rope climbing down to reach the train was gone. We were running really low on water at this time, so we decided to head back. And while on our way back, we found a dead body. We called 911 and they asked us to stay, but we cannot stay any longer because we were so dehydrated, so we hiked ourselves back out. The only thing that we can do at that time to combat the situation is to have a mindset that we have to get out alive. It was a rough journey back to our truck where there is soda and water in our cooler and melted ice. I remember that time after I soaked the dirty towel to wipe my body to cool it down, I still drank the dirty water from the cooler. That's how dehydrated we were. So from that moment, whenever I go hiking, I have learned that I need to check my water bladder if there's a leak. It was after a couple of years from there when I find myself again in trouble in the middle of the heat while hiking in the desert. It was nothing big, but it was a trail in Butcher Jones when I felt nauseous on my hike back. The part of the trail where I was at was mostly exposed to the heat or sun, so I tried to find a small bush where I could squeeze myself while resting. I took a Noon, which is an electrolyte tablet, and it worked like magic. After eating and drinking, I was able to finish the hike back to my car. Now recently, I have been hiking on an extreme hot weather, but wasn't really my plan, but just ending up on that situation. At the end of June, in the middle of summer, I got a permit to camp the Little Colorado for 2 days. I know that it's going to be really hot in the middle of the day hiking that said trail, so I planned on doing it in the dark. I started my hike 3 in the morning and there was a cool breeze going. It was mostly scrambling rather than hiking. I reached the Blue River just as soon as the sun shined on it. Now my plan was to camp there for the night and leave again at 2 a.m. while it is still dark. Unfortunately, I had to get out on the same day due to a weather forecast. I was hiking out in the middle of the heat that day when the sun was up on its finest. The hike out was really tough. I broke down a couple of times crying. I had to find a shade every 5 to 10 minutes of walking. Sometimes there are decent shades I can go in and rest, but there are times when I really have to squeeze myself in a small shade beside a rock. I drink electrolyte whenever I feel I need it. I wet the towel and put it on my head, and there are times when I pour water on my shirt to cool my body down. I was really worried when I came to the part where the trail is completely exposed to the sun and there is still 2 miles to go. The sun was really beating me down. And suddenly, the clouds rolled in and started to drizzle. That was the reason why I needed to hike out on the same day. It started to pour rain and I just kept on going with no breaks at all. When I got to the higher elevation, I looked back and looked at the river. It turned brown. I am just so glad I left when I left because I was worried there will be flash flood. It was the hardest hike I've ever done, but I wouldn't change a thing. Another hike that I did on an extreme heat was my recent backpacking trip in the backcountry of the Grand Canyon National Park, which is the rim to rim. Again, my plan was to hide where there is still shade except for the first day. Aside from being exhausted from the 5-hour shuttle ride and a 5 to 6 hour hike to the campground, I didn't have any issues. It was a little warm at Cottonwood, but at 11 p.m. with the cool breeze going, I woke up freezing. I woke up past 5 in the morning. I wanted to hike out already, but I have decided to let my friend rest a little bit more. We left at 8 a.m. and oh boy, as soon as the sun hit our trail, it was hot. We had a lot of stops along the way to cool ourselves down and hydrate. We reached the Phantom Ranch at 1 in the afternoon, and as soon as we got there, we went straight to the creek for a dip and cool down our body. The next day, we started a hike earlier than the previous day, but we still caught ourselves being toasted alive in the sun. This time, I have learned that if I fully wet my clothes or shirts and put it back on my body rather than pouring water on it, it feels significantly better. There was a time when I was so desperate that even the small puddle on the trail, it's not really muddy, it's just water. I carefully soak my shirt on so it doesn't turn to mud. Squeeze the excess water out and put it back on my shirt. It feels still amazing. I have also learned from this trip that eating fresh fruits like pineapple, cantaloupe, apple is more refreshing than eat trail mix or nuts or anything that is dry. Sure, it adds a little weight on my backpack, but it was worth it for me. That's what I can share from what I've learned surviving on an extreme heat while hiking. I hope you guys learn or pick up something new from the experience that I've went through while hiking in the middle of the heat. If you have a story of your own finding yourself in trouble in the middle of the heat and how you survive, please share it down on the comment section below because I would love to learn from other people's experiences and stories. Have a wonderful day.